10 minutes, so we've got 10 minutes for this. Okay. Mr. Stinson, is your team, because you're prepared to begin? Sure. Okay.
I've got a lot I want to address. The first one I think I want to address is the idea that when you're in Galva, Illinois, a small town like this, I agree with Mr. Norway that it's really difficult to say that public schools are failing, because in fact Galva is seriously one of the premier public schools, and a lot of the premier public schools are around these areas. So it's not the idea that public schools in these areas are failing, it's the idea that public schools in urban centers where low-income folks are concentrated that are really truly failing. If you want to go to see public schools and charter schools, in fact, I'll give them that. Charter schools in this area have really not done a whole lot better. Some have done worse. And so I think our concern about the education system is not so much fixing what's already working here at Galva, but monitoring and looking at those areas where public schools truly are and have been for decades failing to serve those low-income kids.
I'd like to point out that you said that school choice was destroying the public schools, but it's not. It's destroying the bad schools, the bad charter schools, and all of the schools that are failing. If we get school choice, there would be different regulations for teachers and for students, so we can improve test scores and improve teaching, which will help improve the test scores. But if the bad schools are failing as public schools and we get rid of the charter schools, there's no way for the students to improve anything.
I would add to that a point that I believe Mr. Norway earlier was that charter schools don't have better scores, they're not better performing, and I agree. I don't think that just by a school being a charter school or a school being a religious school is any better. All I'm saying is that schools should be forced to compete. And if public schools really are so good as they say they are, then they have absolutely nothing to fear from competition, especially from schools that they would say are inferior to public schools. So I would say, a school like Galva, I'd like to point out that I think a school like Galva would benefit from choice. We would see more students come to Galva, not less. So I don't think that we can say that charter schools are better, and that's certainly not the claim that we're making. We're not saying that charter schools are better. We're only saying that the best schools should be the ones that are serving you, not the worst.
Okay, well, Rachel made the point, or tried mentioning the point that vouchers, when you use them, you can go wherever you want. If you're like in a low, bad area, wherever in the state, that you can go to the school wherever you want. But vouchers don't pay for the traveling, and I don't know who they would expect to pay for the traveling, if you want the taxpayers to pay for the traveling, or if you're expecting the person themselves to pay for the traveling. That'll add up over time, and they could have just moved there in the first place, moved to the area they want to go to school at.
Rachel, can your team answer that?
Certain schools, like public schools, even then, they can offer that as like a service that would, like, if we did have the competition, they could offer it as another incentive for them to come to that school.
I would also remind you that, especially in small communities that require a lot of busing like this, unless we had a group of schools that came in that were tremendously better than Galva, and I doubt that would happen, I think most of you would continue to go to your neighborhood school. It would still be your choice, though, and the school would still continue to offer transportation. Now, if you have a school that's really great, and you'd like to go to that school, yet it's in, I don't know, Anawan per se, then Anawan, it's in their best interest to offer you a form of travel to get to that school. Again, and with competition, schools are competing for you, and so that would be a service that they would compete to offer to you.
Going off the point of what Mr. Stinson had made about the golden ticket, I just want you to understand, I hope you do understand, the golden ticket is indeed golden, but it's coming from your pockets. As taxpayers, the money that's being used for charter schools or the money that's being used for public schools is coming from taxpayer dollars. Now, the issue at hand here, what I assume the side here is stating is that by offering choice, they can get out of failing public schools. The more important question is, why are public schools failing? This is something that I worry that you won't understand unless you hear it, and that is, this is a constructed failure. What I would like to hear from Rachel and Mr. Stinson is, Where are the scores that show public education has suddenly dropped so dramatically in the past 10, 15, 20 years that we need alternative choices? There are failing schools, plenty of failing public institutions, but it was created by companies who set us up to fail. Example, 2 to 3 years ago, Galva was scoring at a 77% rate in terms of math and reading scores, roughly around that 75 percentile. Now, we're down in the 50% range. Did all of a sudden you become dumber in 2 years? Less intelligent, incapable of scoring on those exams? No. Pearson Industries and other corporate giants saw $600 billion worth of potential in this classroom and said, I want in on it, and I want to get rich. So that's why I'm going to release the PARCC exam. That's why I'm going to create exams that kids are just not ready at this point to take. And then when they fail those tests, I'm going to offer an alternative choice because that's a privatized school where there's profit involved. Charter schools are not necessarily a bad thing. Again, like Curran said, they were meant to work with us as experimental zones to say, this works quite well. Why don't we try putting that in the public school 5 miles down the road? They were not meant to be permanent institutions in which all students would have access to at any time. The problem of public schools was created by corporate giants creating large-scale tests for maximum profits. You're taking those tests, and some of you are failing them, and you're being labeled as a failure. You're not. The companies that wrote them failed you.
Yeah, I just have to respond to that last one. The very tests that you guys complain kids have to take, and you guys hate taking standardized tests, I know you do. The very tests that we have to take are required by the same government that forces you to go to the schools that you are at now. So I would say that I would agree with you that corporate giants should not profit from those testing. And in fact, I think that choice would actually lead to far less testing. Because right now, among public schools, when there's no competition, we use test scores as the only medium of showing, has a school done well? And I think with choice, you no longer have to rely on test scores to show whether schools are doing well. Because you, voting with your voucher or voting with your feet, will choose which schools are doing well. I just think ultimately that you guys know better than government does when it comes to schools. And I would also, I know Rachel wants to weigh in here, I would also say, with the corporatization of America, that what I think they see as a great struggle, I see as a big asset. If you guys think of all the technologies we have now that make education great. If you would have went to school when Mr. Norway and I were going to school, you would have had overhead transparencies, you would have had lecture notes the entire class, and it's these corporate companies, these businesses looking, yes, to make a profit, that have given you some of the most profound technology that's available. Has anybody in here, I'm not going to ask a question, but if anybody in here has watched Khan Academy, or you've taken a Socrative quiz, or you've used tablets to enhance your education, these are all things that I think enhance education, and I don't know that they take away from education.
Did anybody respond, Mr. Norway or Ms. O'Reilly?
I was going to go back to one of their points, the money for, like, Stinson mentioned the point of, like, we can get group transportation together. Well, that would actually come out of the school. Like, the money that we use to pay for the transportation and for each individual person to use that transportation will come out of our school and the schools around us. I don't know if you have the time.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I talked with Doug O'Reilly, superintendent, about the school budget here in Galva, and he mentioned that we get half as much money as the average school would per person, and it's based on corruption. It's mainly, like right now, for our school, we get that much money just because of Illinois itself. So the money issues are pretty much just state issues, not school issues. And like political figures who have influence over our state, they will bribe people into saying, like, we'll give you these transportations if you give me your vote, and then they'll take the money that they would use for the transportation out of our school budget. So we should be getting a lot more money for, like, the Chicago bus riders. They get to ride the bus for free. that money that they use should be going to us instead. And the political figures, they will make deals with businesses, because most businesses would have to like chip in money for our school, but if they make deals with the right people, they don't have to. Like right now, we're only getting money from farmers, people who own houses, and the windmill industry. Like the ethanol plant here in Galva, one of the most money, I don't know. They get a lot of money and they don't chip in at all for us.
All right, very good, very good. Okay, part 3 is audience participation, audience question and answer.